WD18, the Watford Fans channel. It's me, Shane, back for another preview of the Golden Boys take on West Ham at Vicarage Road. It's the second home game of the season, our third of the overall season. In case you guys are wondering, yes, I'm in a different location. I'm by the River Thames here in South London. I off to see some old school friends of mine. Whilst they've headed off to go and get some lunch, I've decided to record this preview. So a bit of a change of scenario and what is absolutely beautiful weather today. It's said to be a beautiful weekend as well, of course, the bank holiday weekend. High of about 30 degrees tomorrow at Vicarage Road, so bring your sunscreen I should say, and a hat as well, because it's going to get hot. And hopefully what we see on the pitch is nice and hot as well, because to be honest, things have been a little bit cold, a little bit clunky really in the last couple of matches. Of course, we haven't actually won a game yet this season, and there's a lot of pressure, I think, on Javi and the lads this weekend to actually put in a performance. Well, it's going to be an interesting game as well, up against actually a really quite a resurgent West Ham side as well. So before, of course, we get into West Ham, which we will talk about them in just a little bit, let's have a bit of a recap in regards to our last game. Of course, the 1-0 defeat at Goodison Park last Saturday. A goal for Bernard being the difference in the end in what was a really quite frustrating game. I think a lot of Everton fans came off the back of that game thinking that we'd be able to get the get an actual draw in the game. Of course, golden chance as well in that game for Troy Deeney, probably our biggest one there. But ultimately Everton hung on really, and they didn't really need to get out of first gear. They played a relatively good game, and I thought I came off the back of that feeling relatively slightly concerned, although not too much. But back at the Vic, of course, on Saturday, it's a big game for us. It's a game that I think we need to win. We need to pick up, I would want to be able to pick up 2 wins in our next 2 games. I'm just not sure that's going to be necessarily as realistic as some of us, or some fans actually think. I think we'll do well to pick up 4 points in the next 2 games. Of course, Newcastle away Saturday week. But speaking of Watford, let's get into just a little bit of our team news for the week. And actually there's a lot of team news this week as well, as I'm sure lots of fans would have heard. The big news yesterday that Troy Deeney will be out for 2 months with a knee injury. He's undergone surgery. I wish Troy a speedy recovery and the best of recoveries as well of that. It seems to be one of those problems. I think he had it back in the last season as well, whereby he was just soldiering on, kind of keeping his pain to himself, and now all of a sudden he's needed knee surgery. It's a blow to us. I'm not sure it's a big blow. I'm not sure it's a bigger blow as fans are making out for it to be. I think it's a chance for Javi to actually now experiment with the formation, a chance for him to bring in new people, and ultimately for us to kind of move away really from, I would say, constantly relying on Troy, because in the last 2 games he hasn't really been on it, and I think we just need to come out and say that. It's high time things kind of changed especially I think within our attack. And I think an injury for Troy is a good thing and a bad thing. It's a bad thing in the sense that, alright, we've lost our captain, but also I think it's a good thing in the sense that someone else is now going to get himself a go, because if we're being honest, if Troy was fit, he probably wouldn't be dropped, and I think he needs to be dropped for his own good, and that's just my opinion on that. So that's the big bit of team news as well. So Troy's out for 2 months, which is, I think, overall, I think short term it's a good thing. Long term, I think it might well be a bit of a blur. Of course, we've got a very tough month next month. Of course, we're taking on Arsenal, visit the Vic. We've got trips to Man City and Wolves to make. He'll be missing all of those, probably missing all of our October games, which of course include a trip to Spurs' new place as well. So big games that Troy's missing out on, but ultimately we move on. And a chance as well for the likes of Danny Welbeck, for that's it, Stefano Akaka, but I think that's a big chance he could well be involved, especially in the midweek match against Coventry as well, which of course we'll see a big reshuffle, I think, for Watford. Other bits of team news, of course, Roberto Pereira, Abdoulaye Doucouré, both out with both out with injuries, and there are doubts, of course, for the game on Saturday. Doesn't really bode all that well really. We've got Doucouré out, we've got Pereira out, we've got Deeney out, and of course Welbeck and Sarr are apparently, it's a risk to put them forward at such an early stage in their Watford careers, apparently, according to Javi, and we're light on the ground in that respect. But With all that in mind, of course, I'm going to come up now with a starting 11. So with the team news in mind, I'm going to go for a 4-3-3 formation this weekend. Going to do it without Troy, Abdullah and Pereira. Of course, those guys, of course, except for Troy, may well be past fit, but I'm just going to go with what I think the lineup would be if those guys were out. Starting off in goal, obviously Ben Foster. Back four for me, Kiko Femenia right back, Cathcart centre back, and I think he'll be partnered alongside him will be Christian Cabasele. Left back for me, Jose Holebas. Three in the midfield is an interesting one, of course, no Doucouré, so of course Capoue will start. I think Tom Cleverley will get a run out, and I'd love to see Dominguez Quina as well in there. So a really interesting three that I don't think I've actually played together. We don't tend to see three in the midfield very often at the moment for Watford, but I think it's something that could work, and I think it's something that's new. Especially someone like Cleverley as well. I think his know-how has been missed. Not saying obviously that he's not been good enough, but I think Doucouré, Capoue have had those positions in lockdown, and an injury for either one of those two presents a chance for someone else to come in, and I think Cleverley has got the ability to put in a good performance. Same as well with Quina, young lad. I think he should be getting chances like this as well. Of course, I'm sure he'll be playing. If he doesn't play on Saturday, I'm sure he'll get a chance to play midweek against Coventry. If we move to the three up top, I'd go. How would I go with that? I'd probably start Sarr. I think Sarr would start. I think Deulofeu would start, and I think I'd put the striker as Andre Gray. I'd want to Deulofeu. Where'd Deulofeu? I go Deulofeu on the right, Sarr on the left, and Gray up top. I don't think Will Hughes should start. I don't think he's been on it the last couple of matches. And I do think as well, in regards to our strikers, it'd be nice to see Welbeck play some sort of part in it. I'm not sure Welbeck will start the game though. I'd like to see Welbeck come off the bench. I'd like to see Andre given a chance up top. Something new, a little bit of pace, and I think those front three in particular, especially if Sarr gets out the blocks fast, I think that could really cause West Ham some problems. On the bench, of course, usual suspects on there. I'd expect amazingly, I'd expect Gomez on the bench, although we have Bachmann, we have Dahlberg. I'm not sure why those two guys are not on the bench. Definitely someone like Mariappa, you've got Messina, Chalobah maybe as well if he's fit. Of course, Ken Sember's no longer going to be a regular on our bench. He's been loaned out to Udinese, but I'd like to see Stefano Akaka, maybe even one of the younger guys as well, possibly like Ryan Cassidy as well. I know he was considering leaving Watford due to a lack of first team opportunities. Stick him on the bench, why not? I think he would give us something different. I think Akaka would as well. I think he's pure strength running at that West Ham defence. But no, that would be my team to take on West Ham on Saturday. Now let's move on and have a little bit of a chat about West Ham. Their first two games have been relatively mixed. Of course, they are still without a win this season, but a little bit more understandable from their perspective, of course, because they had Manchester City first game of the season, and of course they lost that one 5-0. Again, kind of side where I think they're going to grow as the season goes on. They picked up a good point, I thought, last week against Brighton. Certain threats of theirs, of course, we look at the likes of, I always look at the likes of someone like Felipe Anderson, or look at him as a big threat. Bizarrely, I also pick out Mark Noble as well. Not somebody you'd think of on paper, but he's someone who's got an incredibly good goal scoring record against us. He scored last season, I think, at the Vic. He scored in there last season at Upton Park against us as well. So he's a guy who loves to score a penalty, loves to score a shot from outside the box. He always seems to find the space against us. I don't know why. He's just one of those players, he's a bit like Michy Batshuayi. He always seems to find the net against Watford, and I think he'll be a big threat for us. But of course, for them, but of course they've made a couple of really good signings as well, haven't they, over the summer? I look at someone like Sebastian Haller, who was injured last week, but he's going to be past fit this week. I look at someone like Pablo Fornells as well, guys who, all right, maybe are not massively well known by a lot of fans, but players that have got and that can have a really big impact as well. And I think there are definitely three guys out there. I'd say Anderson, Haller, and Fornells, if he does start, of course. I think those guys will be really big threats for West Ham. And ultimately, off the back of that, they've got no new injury concerns. Their team news is that they've got no team news because everyone's fit to play, and that plays into Pellegrini's hands really well. West Ham gave us a really, really good game last season, last game, of course, of the season. Now, of course, at the time, our mind was very much on the FA Cup final. We don't have that excuse this time around. West Ham want to pick up their first win of the season. One of those games against Watford whereby they'll be looking at their first three games thinking we should maybe have beaten Brighton. But Brighton, of course, getting the better of them at the Amex, but a game at Vicarage Road, we beat them last season. We really ought to be picking up some point, or a point of sorts, against Watford, and that's kind of where I think Pellegrini's kind of stance will be. Of course, I pick out dangerous players. Mikel Antonio was a really big dangerous player for them last season. I'm pretty sure he scored twice, actually, or was it a hat-trick? I can't quite remember. Of course, for us, Gerard Deulofeu scored twice in both of the games last season. He'll be a big threat for us. It's crucial, I think, for Deulofeu to have a good game, and ultimately for him and some of our lads as well to get off the mark on the goal scoring charts as well. We haven't actually scored a goal in our first 2 games. It's a little bit worrying for now. I sense there's more frustration after the Everton game, but I think our failure to pick up a result on Saturday, I think questions will have to be will be asked. I think, especially if Javi picks the same team, same kind of formation. I'll certainly be asking a few questions if that's the case. But ultimately, look, I hope we can get off the mark at Vicarage Road. My prediction for the game, I'm going to be positive. I'm going to go for a Watford win. I think we'll nick it 2-1 in the sunshine, courtesy of goals from Andre Gray, and I'm going to go for a debut goal for Ismail Assar as well, mainly because I'm going to be wearing his shirt tomorrow.